Welcome again to Renaissance Videos. My name is Friedrich from Renaissance Charge and Truth and Heart Ministries. And today I have a lot to say. This is probably one of the more important videos, so pay attention. And I ask for your patience as I go through all of this stuff. So what I'm going to do, I think I might turn this motor off here so that you can hear me speak more carefully. So I'm going to explain a few things here before I turn it off. So this is only one coil on our 4-pole kit here. One motor coil and one generator coil. And we're going to show a little bit more on the 0-point process here. And then we're going to get into a bunch of things here. So this is the schematic we're going to look at today. Apologize, my color printer was out of print here, so you'll be able to see this on the screen though when I do the video. So I'm just going to turn off the motor right here, and we can see, I want you to see the voltages. You can see the oscilloscope on there. We're going to look at all that later on. So before we start here, I want to mention a few things. This is a series that we're doing right now on selfish circuits and loving paths. So this is taking it to another level here. So we're going to look through briefly these few diagrams that we've gone over. This is the basic system. In which we take a motor and we convert it over so we're charging a battery at the same time we're running the motor. So we're opening this closed loop here to another path and charging a battery pretty much at the same rate where we're discharging this battery. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time. You can watch the other 3 videos. Then we went to another system here, where we have normally a light bulb across the battery, and now we're adding a second battery, and between the 2 positives we are running this light bulb. Now this battery is discharged and it's half the voltage that this battery is, but we're talking about the same amount of batteries. 2 batteries in series, 2 batteries in parallel, splitting the positive. So we talked about that in the other video. So then we talked about what's the purpose of that in our motors. Well, we combine this system, which we just showed, and then this system to a dual system, combining 2 open loop paths. So we open the loop here, and then we open the loop here. So now we have 4 batteries again here, but we continue to charge the 5th battery, battery bank 3. So 2 battery banks that rotate from series to parallel, and now we're charging a 3rd bank as well. So we have 3 outputs for 1 input approximately. We have some losses here in the closing of this loop. However, we can recover them at let's look at this diagram a little bit better here. We can recover these somewhat because of the pulse motor. And then we're going to get into this process. Here's another diagram. Well, we'll go over this diagram. This is more of the specifics of it. I've shown this already. It's an inverter, capacitor, pulsar, and so this is a very convenient system. So that is that. Now, this is the same thing, but we have solar input or wind generator, hydro. Again, splitting the positive, higher potential to lower potential while we're charging batteries. So today we're going to calculate actually 11 different things that are free energy related in the system, and most people don't pay attention to most of them. So let me explain myself today. I'm going to read through this, so I apologize if it's not memorized. It's not my intention to be eloquent here, just to be clear and be understanding. So this is in the series of selfish circuits and loving paths, this video. So this one is going to be called self-destructive death systems, or sensitive key to receive infinite grace. Now each word is carefully chosen, and it actually just came to me yesterday, so but I did carefully meditate upon it. And I have a purpose for each word, and we'll get into that as we describe the whole thing. So again, bear with me. I'm going to be talking, going back and forth. I know people have a tendency to skip through and try and get to the point, but you're going to miss it because I'm not going to show everything at once. It's got to be developed and understood of what I'm trying to say. So I want to talk about the direction I'm going with all this selfish circuits and loving paths presentation. People have been asking me about that on my YouTube channel. Is there going to be more videos? Where is it going? So everyone is eager to learn what is in the box. There's 2 boxes here today. We haven't shown this one yet, only at our convention. What is in the box? And how do you do 0-point process? So I hope to show a little more about this in this video. But I want to explain more of what I'm working towards on a bigger scale. This has been a lifelong calling of mine that has only recently become clear after I let go of all things and died to myself and now earnestly seek the Lord's will to be done in my life. This presentation is in the last 3 videos and schematics and associated selfish circuits and loving paths and spirit and truth papers came as a result of this seeking the Lord and humbling myself. Many years ago I came to the same place that I mentioned in the selfish circuits paper. You can read or listen to the testimony in the first video. And before that I felt a calling of God while I was running from authority and from God in my life. I knew that I was supposed to do something, but I had no idea what it was. I didn't want anything to do with this idea of a calling of God. After coming to the end of myself, I gave up running and was changed and began living for the Lord. As I began this fight for truth and did what I could to help people any way I could, I realized more and more over the years that something more fundamental was wrong with our culture, and something major was necessary to change it for the better. For the last 24 years or so, I've reprinted and republished old classics that have changed our culture for the better at times, from people who were used by God to influence others around them. These books I have put on the truthinheart.com website, and have been an inspiration to me and thousands of people over those years. I believe I have now learned the secrets necessary to overcome the evils in our world today and the way that our world will eventually be made the way it was supposed to be. These are not secrets that they have never been discovered before or published anywhere. And the same is true about these free energy processes that have been shared for the last 100 years. Everything I'm going to say has been out there, some of it more obvious than others, hidden in plain sight. But those who have an ear to hear, let them hear what the Spirit says to the churches. Or find the truth where you can. So, but what is missing is a simplified way of presenting them in a way, or with the right opportunity to share them all at once, as I am endeavoring to do. I'm trying to bring this down in a way that's most easily understood. I know this has worked already in both the free energy research as well as the spiritual intentions of this presentation, because already the missing concepts have been received by some in this research because of this presentation, the first video. And the others are under conviction of sin and see the need to experience the fullness and the presence of God in their lives. People have already started wanting to find more and know that something is wrong in their lives, that they're selfish, and that there is a remedy, there is an answer. So this is my purpose for these videos, is that people can find mostly a spiritual awakening, but also that they can have free energy as well. Even though I have said this in my final work, this is my final work of free energy, it is clear that it is only the beginning. What I meant by that is that these basic points in the first video are all that's necessary to understand everything you need for energy production. They are not the only processes. We will get into the other important processes in time. But you may eventually see how these all relate to each other. So where am I going with all this? I would like to develop this final stage process with the box here, the 0 point process, as a practical science, where we can do all the math necessary to make real and simple parts do what is necessary to provide unlimited power without rotation of batteries. That is, depending upon the size of the motor or solid-state system and batteries, the system will produce continuous power without a conventional source. Without anything else being added, it runs right here and continues to run. Part of this research will then show how to multiply this process out, 1 box, 2 box, 3 box, while continuing to add loads. And as many times as necessary, with the right additional parts, and they're going to be simple parts, but they will cost some money. Everything costs some money. So this system can be used with the existing grid system in the world. And this system is not, it doesn't depend upon a central grid system, but it's not going to have to replace the existing power lines that we have, unless you want to use it in your house, whatever. So this doesn't need to disrupt our present system. Not for the overthrow of society here, guys. I want you to understand that. And if I was, it probably would have been stopped a long time ago. I'm all about careful change and no pressure. So only slight changes need to be made according to as people can adapt to this. But this change will come. It's inevitable. It may not come through the academic world, and that's why these videos are the way they are. Because the academic world is closed-minded, is not interested in the truth, to tell you honestly. It's interested in profit, it's interested in control, it's interested in prestige, and we need to move away from this. And I'm going to get to that in a moment. So another part of this first I want to say, it's not as if other people aren't teaching on this a little bit. but it's not known. And a lot of people want to sell this kind of system and not disclose the whole system. They want to sell it for millions or billions of dollars. There's a bunch of companies out there right now wanting to do that. So if you want to spend millions of dollars, go right ahead. But I think we're gonna show this all in due time here. So another part of this process will show how we can do the same thing with AC circuits and motors and systems. So my intentions are to start a not-for-profit entity, okay? Not for-profit. That is not a non-profit, tax-exempt organization. I don't care for tax-exempt. I don't care for government control. I don't need that. I don't need anything actually, but if we want to bring the science forward, it's good to have other helpers. And right now there's some interested parties that are wanting to help. Not much money is needed there, and we'll go about this on a volunteer basis, but if we want to develop the science, bring it to the world, we'll do that. Other companies will make products and make them as affordable as possible, and people can buy the products, but the whole point of this is to show everybody everything. So it's open sourced. So I want simply an entity that strictly exists for the research and development of the science, for the purpose of disclosing it to the world in the simplest way possible, that it can be most easily used everywhere. No doubt many new products will be made by separate companies that use these processes so that everyone does not have to try and make them for themselves. But it should be apparent by those who have watched the other videos that these processes can be easily done with parts many people already have in their own homes or in the junkyard. You can find this stuff, guys. It's got to be easy. No real exotic processes. Nothing harmful either. So my desire is to make all this so easy as to understand that poorer people can use existing parts to at least make something work for themselves without having the need to feel like they have to be dependent upon others to buy from them. It's like making a cheap solar panel yourself, okay? Which actually can be easily done. I can show you that. We'll get into that at a later time. My intention is to really make free energy available without having the processes too technical or costly or patented or copyrighted anyway, so that cannot be or will not be used at all. There are many forces of greed at work preventing this for a long time. Talked about that a little bit before. By God's grace, these are now overcome by faith. Will you take hold of that faith with me and overcome the world? Let's not overcome it with anger, guys. I know a lot of you are enraged. Some people are enraged at the government, some at businesses, some at fraudulent free energy claims have stolen their money or something like that. Let's turn that rage to the right place. Let's turn it upward to God, who's the only one that can make us free. No constitution is going to make you free, people. Sorry. I still have deeper intentions than giving the world free energy. I have a burden to write a book, which this is a part of. And out of that book, I have an idea of a museum. The Museum of Truth or Museum of Reality, which I will talk about more later. But it is outlined on the rpmgt.org website. I haven't updated that in a long time, but you can see some of the details. And we'll update that as we have time. One of the chapters in this book that I'm planning on writing here, or I started writing, may contain the subject matter that we're showing today, which is called self-destructive death systems, or sensitive key to receive infinite grace. We will go over this shortly. So the book could be called in part Self-Destructive Death Culture. As part of a bigger picture and plan, which begins with free energy revelations and spiritual analogy of selfishness and love. The book is an attempt to expose all the major bondages our culture is putting upon us and offering a positive alternative. Guys, it's not just about exposing the lies. It's not just about getting all upset. It's about doing something by individually doing something, one person at a time, and being a godly, positive influence in this world. And bit by bit, as we get on our knees and cry out to God, we will change this world. The way you actually, you idealists, want it to be. These utopian people want it to be. It's not in a philosophy, and we're going to get into that. The main idea is to get to the bottom, underlying principles, rather than just dealing with surface level issues, which is where most people focus. Don't be fooled. Don't fall into the trap. Okay, guys? Don't do it. And there's a couple of girls listening, so refer to you too. This book will therefore overlap itself in all the chapters and themes. Chapters will be available before the book is finished. So I'll figure out where we're going to start posting these things, but for now we're showing the energy stuff probably on the Truth and Heart website. The book will get some of its approach from John Bunyan in his book. I have the, so John Bunyan's Holy War. The Holy War, and this is from 1682. It's a classic. People know Pilgrim's Progress, but the Holy War is one of the next most popular books that he wrote, and it's a fun read. But the idea that I want to get is, in this book, there is man's soul, like your soul, your personal soul, and it's looked at, it's called a city, man's soul. And this city is attacked by the devil through various gates, the eye gate, the ear gate, nose, mouth gate, etc. And the devil penetrates and then infiltrates man's soul until he takes over the city. So then a savior comes and defeats this devil with so many details until the devil is cast out and defeated. The concept of the gates in man and the tactics of the devil and the corruption of the flesh and bad influence of the world will be carefully looked at in the various chapters pertaining to them. There's no book like this ever, as far as I'm aware, and especially in our day. What this book is to be is also a resource to point to other good writings on the subjects, the same subjects covered. And that's probably the most important part of the book. I do not plan on being the only writer, but to try and convey the truths of these subjects as best as can be presented. So there will be numerous details presented in footnotes and online, and it will be a free book for all to read. It may be a free book, a physical copy will be given to people if there's donations and enough money to cover that. So that the reader can pursue the details of each point and subject in great detail and thoroughly, but the general reader does not have to get into all the details. It will also be a work in progress. As more things become available, we'll add to it. The enemy is threefold. The flesh, our bodies, the world, which we're talking about, and the devil himself. The flesh is divided threefold as well. The lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. So these are things that we're going to focus on. Thus we need to explore how we can be and are attacked in our culture in these areas. I have very good spiritual books on mental philosophy from the 1830s to 1880s that would be part of this book, which I have online for free. You can view them. See especially Asa Mahan, his books in that section. We will carefully develop under the proper understanding of man's nature and these influences. there's a lot of bad philosophy, guys, especially in the church, and people are just blinded by so many things. We need to simplify these things. We need to get to the bottom of the issue and overcome. Another point is that we need to have the proper balance between spirit and body. All right? In our culture, we are highly stimulated in our bodies, and we need to have our spirits more stimulated than our bodies. Right? The spirit is to rule over the body. I said this to my kids the other day. Right? We need to have, there's too much pertaining to the impulses of the body and very little to the spirit. Very little reason and logic and spirituality. It needs to be reversed. We need to, in all of our culture, be motivated that way. So this is what I'm trying to attempt to show in this book. So our culture enslaves us in many ways in this respect, so that we are impulsive and slaves to various lusts. Now, if you don't think this pertains to this, then you're mistaken. Because we are enslaved, and this is the whole purpose of this video, we are enslaved to a system that not only we have to pay for energy, but we also are harmed by it physically. And our mental evaluation is decreased. Our mental capabilities are decreased, I should say, as an example, by this harmful radiation and so forth processes. So it very much pertains to this. But I hope that when I show all this on the electrical side of things, that you will consider hearing other things that I have to say that are actually more important than this. Where everything's important, but everything has its place. So I would start with an extensive introduction that ties everything together, that groups various chapters together into sections. I may start with a chapter on education, which I have mostly written at least one section on already, on prejudice. I show how our culture has taught us in many ways, and through its educational system, to be prejudiced. Not racial prejudice, but prejudgmental. We are taught just to believe what we're told without much question, right? And at the same time, to believe what we want to believe. Oh, choose for yourself what you want to believe. It's all about personal feelings, I guess. No. So instead of teaching us how to think, not what is truth, but how to discover truth, how to evaluate, come on, logic, reason, and honesty. You can't be, I don't care, just look at the lawyers and their dishonesty and their logic. It's not just about reason, it's about right heart. That's why we say truth in heart, not just in the head, in my ministry. So I've done a lot of research over the last 25 years on these subject matters. As I said, I went as a missionary around to the schools, volunteering, talking to students every day for a year on campuses across the whole country about these very topics. Another chapter is on technology, where I present all of this stuff we are working on as it relates to putting us in bondage, as I just said. It would cover and overlap with health chapters. I want to bring out all the major ways we are attacked in our health by technology and other things we do. You know, many people have done that, and that's great. It's just I'm going to try and organize it in a simple way, boom, 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 with resources, and demystify things, and offer a solution. It's not just what's bad, but what is an alternative. So, the health part will be in its own section, as there will be many chapters. Food will obviously be a big subject, disease another, vaccines will be another whole chapter, the whole medical world another. There'll be another chapter on financial bondages and being in debt, another on politics and partyism and sectarianism, another on the military-industrial complex and government, another on the Christian church and religion, where the spirit and truth is a part of that chapter. I can present a lot of history in that. Another chapter on music, how it influences us. On TV, on movies. Ooh, that might be the most controversial one. Another on the media. Another on entertainment. And that's going to be a hard one to swallow, believe me. Another on business. Another on the home. Some chapters are short and others are long. Each chapter is to make a convincing presentation with strong arguments only, and no weak arguments. Each must be a positive alternative to what is criticized. If you can't offer alternative, then you're not really worthy of voicing your opinion. This book will be loved and hated alike. The hope is that while people love some parts of it, they will also be encouraged to see other areas of their lives that need help in the other parts of the book. This was the objective of the analogy of selfish circuits and loving paths. This is truly a holistic approach in our lives. I want to encourage a comprehensive resource from a godly perspective, when all we have today is secular perspectives in the schools, encyclopedias, literature, museums, etc. A book like this as a resource and as a historic or a holistic approach will have much appeal to many people rather than each chapter by itself. It is time to take back our culture area by area and set the captives free. Now, I want to say that I'm not claiming to have all the answers to everything in life. I'm writing this book for myself first, next for my children, then I pray that it'll be used for the good of others. And as I was working on this whole idea, bit by bit, more things came together, until actually what I was doing in this technology became a part of it. And that was really just the other day that I realized it. So this is kind of a new direction with all of this. So the museum idea, let me get a little bit more detail on this museum. Everybody I talked to in the last 8 years about it has really liked the idea. Maybe 10 years I think I've been talking about this. The museum idea would be a place to display the technology running the entire museum for free, and teach on the subjects as well, on this subject, as well as many ideas and topics in this book. Then each area, I'll be there for the first student in this school and presenting my findings on these various subjects, which I'm doing bit by bit. Over the last 12 years I've been doing that. And I'll write a book. Everybody's asking, yeah, I'll write a book, Lord willing. But let's at least do a chapter right here. I'm going to have a book about the whole technology. Anyway, then each area and display of the museum would have a place for people to respond, like what is presented in a modern way, like the comment section on Facebook or YouTube, or that whole interactive idea needs to be part of it. We need to be modern in this sense. So we can use maybe our smartphones and interact and share our understandings and whatever, add to this whole museum idea. Also, there would be a place for people to physically debate and to learn and have classrooms. And the objective would be for Christians like myself to present their worldview. And the whole place would be a place of learning and apologetics. But it would be also, it would be beyond what Ken Ham is doing with the Art Museum idea, which is fascinating. I'm interested to see that. The museum would start off with the energy display, as well as the spiritual analogy, the subject matters in this book, as well as many other subjects. Each subject would have its own area where a physical presentation is to be built with displays. All sorts of physical objects and interactive media and computers that you can search and everything. Handouts, a whole bit. And then some of these areas will be grouped together. This is just an idea. If I don't do it, somebody else can. I'm not claiming ownership over it. This would need to be on at least 10-acre property, at least, with the building or a group of buildings the size of a mall or a regular museum. And I'd like to do it online as well, so make it an online experience as well as a physical experience. Because I'm not expecting people to make a pilgrimage. The idea came from Asa Mahan's A Critical History of Philosophy, which I publish. I've been republishing that for many years now. And it was one of the first books on the subject of critical history of philosophy. And after showing 4 possible systems of philosophy, the idealist who only believes in a spiritual world, the materialist who only believes in the physical world, and the skeptic who disbelieves both the spiritual and physical world, while the realist believes both the spiritual and the physical world. This is the Christian position. And showing only the realist position is reality, he then outlines this museum idea that I've enlarged upon. My idea enlarges upon it in several ways. I would like it to cover all the major areas of history. Not people or things, but ideas. Matters of philosophy, theology, Christian evidences. We have a large section on atheism, which would allow atheists to present their most convincing arguments, to which people could respond to. This is what Oberlin College did. A lot of these authors I published were Oberlin College 1830s to 50s, 80s. And the presidents, starting with Asa Mahan and Charles Finney, the second president, they would allow anybody to come and teach their positions on all the important subjects. And the students loved this whole idea. People would come, they would present their arguments, and these presidents and others would respond. And of course they would always win the debates. And people could decide. And it was a fair way of presenting things. Not controlled or manipulated. It was free speech. And so I want to take this into the museum. And just make this a place for people to learn and discuss and so forth. So then we would allow arguments and presentations so long as they were not immoral. The whole place would need to be suitable for kids, and there would be nothing pertaining to evil spiritual things. That's to be some limitations, guys. Connected with this museum is a school that I once called RPMGT, or the School of Realistic Philosophy and Moral Government Theology. That name will probably be changed. But I'd be interested in having the school idea, which I actually did on a small scale years ago with the museum. I'd like to do the school with the museum and the book and all this. The idea, which I've encouraged over the years, is to have people study half of the day and work the other half so that they have a good physical and mental balance in their life, the way life should be. Should be always just sitting at a computer desk, getting fat, bad posture. Guys, we need to move around, be active. But we can't just be all active either and not mentally active or spiritually active. I realize now, actually this morning, or yesterday, no, this morning, I realize now that part of this agenda of this book is to move mankind towards an equilibrium rather than a dipolarity that has existed from earliest times. Let me explain. There's always existed 2 classes of people, more or less. The privileged, educated, professional class, and the common man who is the slave and can be uneducated and is a peasant. And that's the way the upper class has looked at the lower class. Who cares about them? Each area in life now has its experts who are authorities, which mankind in general just accepts as rulers in their sphere. We have professional priests, police force, armed forces, government, doctors, lawyers, politicians, scientists, teachers, athletes, musicians, etc. We've come to a place where the common man no longer needs to learn anything for himself, but rather to let someone else do everything for him, including learning. While he can just do simple labor job and and just buy what he needs to survive and nod his head in agreement with what the experts decide. Is that not across the world our experience? I've long pondered the life of man before kings began to rule in Israel, for example, with that which was warned about by God, where the general population would become the slave class. God did not want, and I'm not here getting into communism, guys, so don't worry about it. God did not want to or recommend all this, but knew in the weakness of man that mankind in general would demand this due to their natural laziness. There's a way that seems right to man but leads to death. Leaning upon our own understanding of efficiency, it seems to make sense to let various people become experts in various areas of study in life so that the rest of mankind can focus on their own areas. Make sense? That's the argument. That's what people accept. However, man for the most part is entirely given over to selfish ambition. And so this has not worked out so that in most times of history and in all these various areas of professional class, the truth has been distorted. The conclusions have been godless, and people have ended up in slavery in one form or another. So, hear me out. I'm not talking about the form of things. I'm not talking about that can't work. But because of the selfishness of man, it hasn't worked. So we need to correct the most important problem, which is the selfishness of man, if we want to still use that kind of class system. But you'll see that won't happen. However, there are too many mediators in life when God desires for the wall of separation to be removed. Alright? We are all to know the Lord from the least to the greatest. We are all to become responsible and learn to take care of ourselves and not be slaves of others. We are to have a wide and general knowledge and not let a few people determine the outcome of everything in various fields. Ancient Israel before the kings was to be ready to defend itself when needed. Each man was to be ready rather than there existing a professional force practically owned by the kings to be given over to that one occupation. A standing army. Something wrong about that, people. The warning about what a king will do to the people is found in 1 Samuel 8, when Israel demanded to have a king like the other nations around them. So let's read that. But I want to clarify, lest you get all upset. I will have a whole chapter on that, and I'll explain myself more fully in this book. But I want you to understand, and hear what I'm saying without jumping off and being upset now because I said that. I want to encourage everybody to be more active in all areas of life, rather than just having one over here, which don't know anything about each other, and cause all the problems that we have today. That's what I'm aiming for. So don't take my words too far. So let's go to 1 Samuel 8, verse 6, starting. But the thing displeased Samuel when they said, "Give us a king to judge us." And Samuel prayed unto the Lord. And the Lord said unto Samuel, "Listen to the voice of the people and all that they say to you. For they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me, that I should not reign over them, according to all the works which they have done since the day that I brought them up out of Egypt, even to this day, where they have forsaken me and served other gods. So do they also to you. Now therefore, listen to their voice. Howbeit, yet protest solemnly to them, and show them the manner of the king that shall reign over them. Give it to them, but warn them, tell them why, what's going to happen. And Samuel told all the words of the Lord to the people that asked of him a king. And he said, this will be the manner of the king that shall reign over you. He will take your sons and appoint them for himself. Selfishness. For his chariots, and to be his horsemen, and some shall run before his chariots. And he will appoint him captains over thousands, and captains over 50s, and he will set them to ear his ground, and to reap his harvest, and to make his instruments of war, and instruments of his chariots. And he will take your daughters to be perfumers, and to be cooks, and to be bakers. And he will take your fields and your vineyards, and your olive yards, even the best of them, and give them to his servants. And he will take the tenth of your seed, and of your vineyards, taxes, guys, and give them to his officers, and to his servants. And he will take your menservants, and your maidservants, and your godliest men, and your asses, and put them to work, to his work. He will take a tenth of your sheep, and of your servants, and you shall cry out in that day because of your king, which you have chosen, and the Lord will not hear you in that day. I hear a lot of people, I don't want taxes. Well, the people have asked for them. So what do? What is the answer, guys? This is what I'm trying to promote. The true answer. Again, not violence. Don't fall for the violence. Let's read on. Nevertheless, the people refused to obey the voice of Samuel. Remember Samuel's words, none of them fell to the ground. He was a prophet, and they still didn't hear him. They didn't hear Moses. People who tell the truth, the majority do not listen to. Maybe now they can. I don't know. We'll see. No doubt. No, they said to Samuel, we will have a king over us, that we also may be like all the nations, and that our king may judge us and go out before us and fight our battles. Do our work for us. We can see here that the Lord wanted a closer relationship with everyone individually. Implied in this is a general responsibility in life. An independence rather than a dependence upon others in your life. So I see that the answer is not one form of political philosophy or form of government over another, such as communism over democracy, but rather that each person in society must become educated and upright, and thus less and less dependent upon others. When revival happens, then these walls fall down as people become generally upright and responsible and educated. The philosophy of libertarianism is gaining momentum in our day, as well as its sister anarchism. While they may have good intentions and promote some right ideas, proponents often fail to recognize the present state of our culture and the spiritual state of the masses. You will always have oppression when people care not to be responsible. The population will generally get what it deserves by natural law, which is reaping what one sows. You got to think of that, guys. We can argue all we want about the right form. We won't vote, we will vote, we will do this and that. But what's actually happening? And what's the solution? Think about it. I hope this at least stirs you to think. That's all I want you to do. The population, like I said, will generally get what it deserves. Removing one evil head will not change the fact that another will replace them. The problem is more fundamental than various individuals. Do you realize, guys, the whole political system has blinded the masses in this respect. Even those not supportive of the political system have largely been blinded and fallen into a trap. Do you realize that this whole system is set up in a way to keep you a slave the whole way of our life. Because it's teaching us to be slaves of our flesh, slaves in our mind, and slaves in our choices, our will. And all these areas, that's what I'm trying to focus on in this book, all these areas are deceptions in our lives. And we just go with the flow. Some of the people don't, but they get caught up in another sphere. And we find ourselves all trapped. And there is liberty. There's liberty individually first. Then there's liberty for a community and a nation and the world. The fundamental problem is a spiritual one with each individual. When the majority of individuals in any community become spiritually right before God, and thus, where they are truly holy as God is holy, and thus the presence of God is within them, then the community will reverse from worldliness and all the evils in the world proportionately. You got to understand that. It will happen. It has happened, and I'm a student of revivals and movements, religions, and all sorts of studies I've done. And you realize what happened in Rochester in the 1830s. Because Father Nash, Daniel Nash, who prayed himself to death for that to happen, and others like Charles Finney preached and prayed themselves sick until the whole of society changed. It was amazing. Look it up. That's what can happen again, person by person. When this spreads and is not declining, then we will have the beginning of the millennium. So long as people do not know this and do not believe in the Lord to so change society at the individual level, resulting in changing culture, and settle for selfish class systems of lords and peasants, this world will remain in perpetual cycles of bondage and sin. What happened in Tyndale's day? Before, at the beginning of the Reformation, the Word of God came and it set the people free, individually in their hearts. Not because some other Reformation system came about. The Reformation did good and evil. The real truth was that at an individual level, people knew the Lord. And a lot of the good people were killed. By both sides. Not the good side, of course. Both of the bad sides. I won't mention names. So, this will continue to happen. Whether that will happen in my life or not. Oh wait, hold on a second, let me see this. So I see my calling is to try and reverse this backwards trend in all areas of life and work towards millennium. Whether that will happen in my life or not, I only hope that I can be some positive influence towards that end so that others will be influenced to do the same, so that eventually it will happen. We have the promise that it will happen. But these are the means. This is the way it will happen, guys. I think that the Lord is just waiting for someone to just not limit Him in any respect, and then He will pour out His grace proportionately, and others will catch onto that infinite source, and then there will be no stopping that inrush current, so to speak. This is the victory that overcomes the world, our faith. This is the victory of Joshua marching around Jericho till the impenetrable walls fell, with the worshipful shout of the people of God. Will you open that box? That's the second line in the title. Will you unlock the box? So, again, let's begin to look at what we're going to show today. Self-destructive systems, or sensitive key to receive infinite grace. So I have here some scriptural references, and I'm going to say them. The wages of sin is death. But on the other side, the gift of God is eternal life through Jesus Christ our Lord. For those who misread that in the Christian church, I'll add another verse, which is actually the beginning of the chapter 6 of Romans. Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? Shall we be still a slave? That whole chapter, read it, guys. Don't read chapter 7 and make that your life experience, because it was Paul's former experience. Shall we continue in bondage, guys, in this way and all other ways? By no means. How shall we that are dead to sin live any longer therein? Now, will you unlock the box? So there's two boxes here and here. And I want you to see the analogy here, guys. For the grace of God, Titus chapter 2, 11 to 14. For the grace of God that brings salvation has appeared to all men, teaching us, denying ungodliness and worldly lusts, we should live soberly, righteously, godly, sensibly in this present world, not in the age to come, guys, right now. Looking for that blessed hope and glorious appearing of the great God and our Savior, Jesus Christ, who gave himself for us. Why? That he might redeem us from all iniquity, and purify to himself a peculiar people, zealous of good works. It's not for ourselves. It's for all. It's not good to self, guys. Selfish circuits. It's to share it and to give God the glory. It's to receive it. Receive infinite grace. It's not man doing it himself. Remember, everything good comes from heaven. So, one more verse. This came to me yesterday about being sensitive. I realized this is all very sensitive here. To do this process is not easy to balance it all out. And we're going to get that by God's grace all worked out in detail, in a simple format. But if we want to do this, we have to be sensitive to how things really work. If I just show you what this is immediately, which I actually have done in the first video, by my quotations and everything, and in the full paper, with the cron quotes here. I have shown you, but you have to pay attention. But if I just show the common man who doesn't understand these basic processes first, they're going to do that, and they're going to do what I just did actually before I started this video. I blew out one transistor because I put too big of a load on my little box. I put one of these loads and I blew it out. I don't want that to happen to you. It needs to be figured out. So, pay attention to what I say on a spiritual level, and you can apply it to the physical here. Therefore, as the Holy... This is Hebrews chapter 3 and 4. I'm only going to read certain verses. Therefore, as the Holy Spirit says, today, if you will hear his voice, harden not your hearts, as in the provocation, in the day of temptation in the wilderness, when your fathers tempted me and proved me, and saw my works for 40 years. We all know the story. Therefore I was grieved with that generation and said, they do always err in their heart. Always, notice that. all his people, always erring in their hearts. And they have not known my ways. So I swore in my wrath, they shall not enter into my rest. So let's jump. Let us therefore fear, lest the promise of being left us of entering into his rest, any of you should seem to come short of it. I'm going to mention the rest periods is one of these 11 points. You must have the right rest. In this case, entering into the spiritual rest, the very thing that you're all longing for is the very thing that God offers you right now. But if you will hear his voice, he's speaking to every one of you. You just have to recognize it. Let us therefore come boldly to the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in time of need. Evidently we have need electrically here. We have need in our spiritual lives. We have need for food and physical things. Don't look elsewhere. Look above. I know some of you are in financial bondage. I have been myself. Don't work for the things that perish. Trust the Lord. He will provide a way out for you. I've seen this time and time again. Trust him with... You're struggling with temptation? No temptation has come to you that he cannot help you out of. But let it go. Let go of your life. And in the same way, you have to let go electrically of the conventional circuitry. I know some of you have been trained and you laugh at my presentation and my words, and maybe I falter in explaining some things at times. Maybe you'll be more blind after that because of that and your pride. Maybe you'll be encouraged to look a little bit further than your limited education has given you. I just want people to know the truth. But I want it to get to the fundamental truth, not the surface level. So now, let's look at these points here. Again, self-destructive death systems or culture. The systems that cause death. I'm talking about the death in the battery. Batteries discharging when they could continue to charge. Self-destructive systems to yourself that harm you. Or the sensitive key to receive infinite grace. What is the key? What is the process? The method? As is your method, so will be your outcome. The method is everything. And in education, it needs to be a spiritual method. Honesty of heart. Not just formalities, guys. So, looking here, this is similar to the last one that we did. I've removed the capacitor pulsar. We can still have that, but when we string a whole bunch of batteries in parallel with each other, we can put the inverter on the back end and it won't be harmed by the spike. But use a good inverter. Make it big enough. It has its own capacitors, but if you're pushing it really hard on a small battery bank, it could be damaged. So that's why we have that capacitor pulsar. But essentially we have the stage 3 process, as we had called it, with the 4th process making it stage 4. The first is the conventional process, really. Second is the basic 2 battery. The third is adding this. So what we're doing here is, you can see the stage 2 process would be removing this battery, and I put a little switch here, or 2 switches to make this back to what we originally were doing. So now we can run it either way. It's more beneficial to have the 2 battery bank systems here. It's easier to rotate these around and just run off of these. But you can do, what we're doing here is without this process, just the 2 battery bank system. So now, what we're doing is, I want to read these points on here. When we add the 0 point process, we can not only run our motor So we have, before the 0 point process, we can have charging taking place here, motor action taking place here, and charging taking place here. For 3 outputs, 1 input. In this case, I'm also using a generator coil. Now, the 0 point process can add, if you set it up right, it can charge this primary source battery here. It can also power the motor to run faster. And then it can run its own loads, which in this case we're going to run this 100 watt LED. So then what we can do at that point is, let's see if I want to write any, or read any more. So anyway, I'm going to go over each of these 11 points. The point number 1, these are all the places where God has graced us with free energy in this system. Some of these things you won't think of normally because you're just looking for how much output you can get. But I want to mention first, the magnets are brushless motor, or a brush, sorry, the magnets in a brushless motor give a free potential. Now there's great debate about what a magnet is and how it, the fields and all that, how it works, but it is a source of free energy if you use it rightly. So it gives a free potential. You know, just look at a motor between a brushless or a magnetic motor and a regular conventional motor with no magnets, and you'll see the performance difference because this is additive, it's free. And we can make a motor running off of magnets alone. I'm not getting into that right now. The trigger coil, which is one of these wires in this coil right here, with the magnets passing it, is a free negative potential where the loads can also run for free. So we have a 100 watt or so rheostat there. It's going to get hot under load, and we can put a transformer there. We can put all sorts of loads there, light bulbs and different things, and actually use that energy. At one of my second last convention, we had a big stovetop element that we were heating up that you could use for cooking. While we ran all these lights on that and everything. This is not going to be a full presentation of all those things. It's just going to focus on a few things. But that is the source of free energy when we use the negative trigger coil. Number 3, in the 2 battery process, the second battery charges for free. So this battery is going to charge for free. We've long talked about that for many years. We talked about the fan that you buy from your computer, or there's a fan in the back of here. This oscilloscope. All these brushless fans drain energy, and that's it. But we can take that, cut a couple of traces and add some wires, and charge a battery. At the same time we're running that fan. That's free energy, guys. So then, 4, the rest in the pulse and the longer rest gives more free energy. Now I've talked about this for years. Few people have paid attention to this. But pulsing itself gives obviously a rest point between each magnet. And it's critical that there's enough rest time between the switching for the battery to charge. And the coil fields don't, the magnetic fields don't overlap each other. Otherwise you won't get the proper charging. So the longer the rest period, the more efficient you're going to get out of your system. Now I've said this for years, and I've asked, and nobody has ever responded to this, but one of the things I'm going to say to the world right now is there needs to be the development of a scientific study pertaining to rest. Now I know some people have done some resting, but pertaining to these free energy systems and pertaining to batteries, for example. So we can run short rests, obviously turning on and off the motor and switching it so that it runs like normal. But then we can get into periods of time where we rest the input batteries, rest the charging batteries, and don't actually do anything with them. Turn them off. And I've talked about this, how one skeptic, and I know he's watching these videos, won't mention your name, but I showed him years ago running my fan kit. And you might remember this, if I'm not going to mention his name. I ran my fan kit. I asked him to give me 2 batteries just like this. So we ran the batteries back and forth, one charging, one discharging. And then they were starting to go down in the total voltage. So he's looking at me saying, "What's your point?" I said, "Okay." Then we go to lunch, come back, the batteries had charged up again. Obviously the one under load went back, but the one that's charging continued to charge. So what happened was it recalibrated, just like when you sleep and you wake up and you're more invigorated. Well, what happened was we started up again and the voltages went down, but when we came back the next day they went back up. And so we did this for the whole week. And if you might remember, the batteries were more fully charged than when we started. Well, what had happened was, if we had just gone the whole day without resting, the battery voltages would have gone down and we would have concluded that it's not over unity in that sense. Of course, we're still charging a battery and performing way more work in that scenario if we hadn't given it rest. But giving it rest made that system more efficient. So there needs to be a study. This is what I hope to do, one of the studies, is we take various systems and we learn the science of rest. God gave us rest. He made it part of the 10 Commandments, that we have rest a 7th part of the time. That's probably going to be a key number in this whole thing. But whether it's 7 seconds or 10 seconds or whatever amount of time is necessary, minutes, hours, days, what is the ideal ratio? And of course, idealism is hard to deal with sometimes. It's not practical always, but it needs to be developed. We need to do this. Our culture is given to, it's not like the French who eat slowly and properly digest their food. And in America, bang, 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 as fast as we can get it done. No time for reflection, no time for real health for most people. So in these systems, not just with our battery chargers, the Renaissance chargers, we incorporate some of these rest periods into some of our methods, and we get really good results with restoring batteries. So again, I want to say there is a free energy element or a greater efficiency element in the rest periods. Number 5, generator coils not shown, well they are here but not shown on the circuit, can be added to our motors that are carefully placed to speed up the motors while loaded. I'm going to show you that the motor will speed up when I actually short out the coil. And when I run the suitable load, it will continue to do that. If I run a different kind of load, it will slow down the motor, like an alternator. So there is an additive system that I've incorporated in my design of this type of motor. So the generator coils have several benefits to this system. Number 6, in the 3 battery bank system, which is not shown today, but would be in this diagram here, the third continues to charge while the second bank rotates around with the first. So 3 for 1, output, input. Number 7, adding the 0-point process adds additional free load. Alright? We're going to have 2 running. With that one down there is going to be 1, 2. Now, this one's not going to be all tuned up for this particular motor, but it's just, I had this, I wanted to share it right now, right away, because time is of the essence right now, and I want this information to be shared with you, so I didn't have time to set this up in the most ideal way. We'll get to that in a month from now. Adding The 0-point process is another load, number 7. Number 8, it can also give more power to the motor at the same time. So it can go back into the motor. Notice the arrow. Number 9, it can also reduce bank 1 discharging. It can make this slow down, or it can keep the whole system in 0, or it can actually charge up this battery bank depending on as we adjust it. And that's what has to be fully developed. And I know some already have developed this, but they're not willing to share it, so we in the public domain need to do it. Number 10. Okay, so wait, hold on a second. Can produce more or less power as desired. This represents infinite COP, guys. The people are like, well, what COP is this? And they have all their definitions of what COP is and all that. Well, how about zero, or not zero, how about infinite? You know, the infinity symbol is there chosen in my sorry, for a reason I put it there. So infinite COP, that means keeping everything charged, but having a continual source. That represents infinity, provided parts last and whatever. Now number 10, the 0-point process, or whatever you want to call it, can be multiplied as many times as you want in an indefinite network, like we talked about at the beginning. Indefinite network, guys. When you have this properly developed, this can be multiplied. I mean, I think that's crazy. And then another point I just fitted in at the last minute was number 11. Your batteries can be rejuvenated and be increased and kept for good. The capacity can actually increase in your batteries over time. The rate of charging them can be faster, and you can keep them. You don't have to ruin your batteries. So, will you open the box and receive more grace? Will you open this box? You have to set aside prejudice and self-destructive ways. You know, this closed loop. The death cycles, the destroying, the ungrateful, the unthankful cycles in your life. This covers every area in our life, guys. This is the secret. This is the key. You have to set aside prejudice, self-destructive ways, and be sensitive enough to find the key to infinite energy. But seek first eternal life. And that life is a person, not a thing, not a place. You may want to go somewhere, but it is a place. It's not a place, sorry, it's a person. And you know his name. Where all this will do you no good. Learn the proper balance. Balance, phasing, applications, loads. And so live as you were made to. Reject not the littlest grace, but covet the living water and spirit of heaven, where the source of all we need is found. Be very sensitive. Understand each point. And we're going to start this motor here and look at it running, and I'll go over the details. First of all, we have the charging battery bank here, which actually should have been, these batteries should have been higher, but I haven't charged them up or anything. We've got the oscilloscope across the negative primary battery, And then we have the collector of that, the other terminal. So now what I want to do is show you what happens when we turn it on. Or notice all the lights. And when we turn on the other loads, they will light up too. So I want to run this, but you'll notice something different on this particular motor. It's not essential to what we're talking about, but it is different. Instead of the diodes, what we call the output diodes that run to this bus. Alright, I got two cameras running here so that just in case one doesn't turn out. So we've got the output diodes here are LEDs. They're 10 watt LEDs each, and they're going to light up to a good bit of brightness. And so this is one form of output that is in series, again, going to the charging battery bank. And on the other side, you'll notice a little hint that I gave away, which initially I was going to show both output wires from the motor going through the box, but on my diagram I forgot to do that, so that gave a really big hint as to what I'm doing. But anyway, so only one wire is hooked up because this was just a fake wire. It just went through the box, both of them. So you can see that there's nothing there. So anyway, we have these LEDs and they're backwards. So the positive is connected to the collector and the negative is going to the charging battery. So that's on the positive wire side of things. See, these yellow wires are going directly to the positive post, and these are 24 volts. And then on the other side, the negative terminal, which is going back to the positive of the primary battery. I didn't want to add so many extra batteries to confuse you all, that's why I did the two battery process here. And it goes in from here, out from one box to the other box, back around to the positive terminal through the red wires here. And I'll take the camera off so you can see it later on. And then what we're going to do is we can run a switch, whether it just runs the wire directly and bypasses the system and the 0-point process, or whether it goes through it. So now we're going to run it as going through the box but not being used. The box is not being used. And we're just going to see some basic facts here. So we're connected up. We're all our voltages and everything are connected. And then we're going to add some more lights that are on here, like we did with the little one. Oops, we don't want to do that. We want to turn this off. I mean, we can do it. I just want you to see the normal operation. And this one starts off with the, it's not self-starting, it's using the trigger coil. And so you can see the spikes. This is on the 10 times probe. These are 100 volt spikes. If I change the 10 times setting, you can see it's way up there. So we got the 10 times probe on. Each volt division is 100 volts according to my oscilloscope. And we're going to get it up to voltage, get this voltage back down to operational voltage. and then we're going to run the whole system. Now these LEDs here are very bright, and if I turn off some lights here, we can see that. I'm going to turn off a couple lights here. I mean, it's daytime, so you can see they're operating pretty bright. I mean, they're not full brightness, but they're getting hot. They get hot enough to show. They're already at 120 degrees in that short period of time, without the heat sink, of course. 144. So I risk blowing them out for this video. You know, I'm just showing you how much power is really there. It's quite a bit already. Now we have 24 volts, well 23.8 input at 2.4 amps. And so you can see now it's coming into resonance. It was flickering, the lights. So the charging rate, which we can see here, the battery charging. But the lights actually are a good way of determining what your sort of efficiency is in the system. Whereas if they're dimmer, obviously there's not as much beneficial energy manifesting at that point, that location. So now, so they can be used in that way. Now, this will stabilize. Now it's coming up to speed. The amp draw has come down to almost 2 amps. And this has now come back to 12.7 under load. And I'm going to let this, stabilize a little bit here. Still building up some speed. I could adjust this with this hot. I'm running this on one coil, like I said. So it's getting up to speed and is drawing more amps now until it hits that next resonant cycle. Now, I want to say a couple of things while we're waiting, if we need to wait, I'm not sure. But these wires right here represent the other type of switching that I have, which is connected to a little opto isolator or an opto sensor switch and a timing disc to turn it on at the right time for the customer I'm making this for, so that he can decide which way he wants to run it. So that has nothing to do with it right now. Now, if I have these generator coils here, this one generator coil at least, just with a dead short. Watch what happens when I disconnect it. So now it's slowing down. I don't know if the oscilloscope will show anything different. Slight difference, but anyway, we want to keep that connected. And we can put the suitable load there, but that's not my objective right now. We'll get into that into a fuller system later on. But I just want to show a couple of things. And I really didn't have time to get this all set up where I wanted to, but it's good enough for what we want to talk about. So now, let's see if there's any more to say. The temperature of this is getting up there, 124, the hottest point, and this 100 watt rheostat. There's a lot of power available right there. Like I said, we could run various loads in light. So if this is, a little, maybe a 60, 50 some watt system, depending on where we run this, we could have a lot more power on the output of the system, even at the basic level. This is what I'm calling the basic level. Of course, the LEDs are another part of the system than the basic level. But now we want to add, let's see, we talked about the coil. We only have one motor, or sorry, one coil in there for the motor coils. 7 circuits are being used here, and we are running one of the wires as a trigger wire, which is the green wires here. And then we're going to have this boxes come on. So I'm going to start with the smaller box, I guess. See the spikes now, and I don't have this tuned to this motor by any means, but I want to show you some interesting, it's very bright light here coming at us. It's, I mean, this light that's shining here on the demonstration is bright, but this one is fairly bright. Now we're going to turn on, now this one I don't have it set up where it's going to charge up this battery. It's just going to do a little bit of work right now, but you can see the pulses coming back into the motor now or in the motor are higher. So again, look at the oscilloscope. Look how small they are, and look how high they are. Now I could expand that and, well, anyway, now we're going to turn on a bigger box. Like I said, I had placed another one of these in place of that bulb down there, and it blew out the transistor because more power was coming back into this side of the circuit, and it overloaded that transistor that blew. I was going to show the proof of it. There it is. It blew it out. Now, we want to look again at the temperatures. So we're 134 degrees on that, and these are 188 degrees. This will actually get really hot, too. This is at 90 degrees right now, this bulb, right? So you can tell by an LED that it has a heatsink in it already at 90 degrees. It's pushing it. That's not a very high powerful one, but it is about 7 watts, I think, or so. And I'm not trying to show the absolute efficiency here and everything, but so now with this one, you'll see now even more taking place here. See, the spikes now have risen a whole lot more. And while this ammeter is showing you this amperage, you have to be careful with it. So we're at 288 because it's still wanting to go a little bit faster to get to that next more ideal place. So I could adjust it, but we don't really have time. My cameras are going to run out again. So I'm going to show a couple other things here. One being okay, so now it's coming to that point again. So you notice that the motor has sped up. So hopefully it shifts downward. Well, it didn't, so. But anyway, what I want to show now, okay, so all the power is coming through these points here. So we have all the power running on the output battery at point 180 milliamps, 190 milliamps for 2.9 amps input. Now we are clearly charging this battery. We're clearly running these lights at a lot more power than 180 milliamps. At what voltage are we at? Well, the voltage across the charging battery is that. We're going to look at AC voltage right now, or DC voltage first. Now, I don't have this set up for the 0 point exactly right now. It's quite a bit off actually. But if we go here, we're at 0 volts DC, of course. And then this one is 0.68 DC, and on the AC side, we actually have higher voltage here, 3.6. So this is about phasing, guys. This is about balance. This is about the loads that we're using. 17 volts AC on that side of things. It goes into a bridge rectifier, and then on the DC side, it should have some voltage on this one. Volts DC now. Anyway, the amount of light here, I've turned off the above light, but it's quite a bit of power. This is not obviously full brightness here, but it is. It's getting a little bit warm. And there's a big heat sink on this LED. So now, let's continue to add some more. I've got this process multiplied many times. Let's see if I can do this. I want to look at the amperage. So yeah, at various places, for example, point 11, but notice this right here, point 1. All the wires together are point 1. All the wires are 0.1, and yet they all equal 0.1. So we have 7 different wires here, all 0.1 or so, but then they all equal 0.1 going to the charging battery. Okay, so second here. So we can see here there's no current going through the system on the trigger wire. Now, if we change it to AC, you can see some AC on there. But anyway, according to this charging battery, I can go back here. It's 0.34, well, yeah, 0.9 again. 0.9 amps going through these batteries while all this load is running. Now, I'm going to keep adding more of these. Brighter one. show if this may work or not. I got a bigger bulb here, let's see. Hopefully it doesn't blow everything out. If it blows, then we're done. Nope. Okay, so this is a 10 watt bulb, and it's out of phase somewhat here, so it's not fully on, but it wants to be. All right, let's add another one. And so you can see I'm not in the place where I want to be exactly, but with my efficiency, but you can see the spikes now that have gone up. 1, 2, 3, 4. With a 10 times probe, remember? So we're very high here at the 24 volt level. Of course, you're not going to see everything on the oscilloscope. So let's disconnect this oscilloscope. And hook up maybe to some of these points here. We haven't shown this yet. Let's see if we can get this running here. There you go. So it's not in where it needs to be, but anyway, like I said, there's no current in between these systems here. Let's see these systems, these wires. This one, 0.8 amps, and normally to run that light is a lot higher. See, it's got 0.23 amps there. So, you know, obviously trying to add this all up doesn't make any sense, you know, because it's not. This is not conventional electronics. So, try and get a couple more places here. loose. I don't want to touch it any further. Otherwise it will blow everything out. Anyway, you saw the oscilloscope readings in that. So this is still discharging a little bit. It's not where I want it to be, but we saw the other video. And I need to get it all tuned a little bit better here. Again, my point is to show that we can add as many loads as we want to the system that don't add up to the input. So if we turn this off, see now it's slowing down a little bit. The other factor is that these LEDs are actually influencing the operation of this system a little bit, and so we don't have what we normally have. But I just want to do a little experiment there with that, and just explain this whole idea here. So is there anything else I need to say? We can turn these all off. Now it's running a little bit less, but okay, we're back here. Didn't finish the video after all. What I did is I changed all these bulbs right here, LEDs. I put diodes in them, like we normally do. So now we can see, I've been running for a little while here, but it charges faster, of course, the charging battery, because we're not running the all these LEDs. These were running, like I said, pretty hot. We were pretty much running them at what we were drawing almost. And, well, maybe half of the energy was there and half of it going to the charging battery. So now what we want to do is run this with the, I put a couple of different bulbs because I actually blew one out here. Too much power. So we want to look at a few things. First of all, I put a bigger LED on this generator coil, which did the same thing. If we disconnect it, you'll see it slows down. I don't want to slow it down right now because we had a little nice spot. On this side, we've added another 100-watt LED light here. It's not running very bright at all, but it's offsetting the load a little bit on the rheostat. We also have a little 1 amp bulb here, automotive bulb, in series with the trigger. So like I said, we can play around with that. If we were pushing this a lot harder with a lot more coils and different power levels, then we would have a totally different thing. Right now we're not in a sweet spot, both with these boxes, which we haven't turned on again, but with these transistors, we're only running, we'd want to be about twice the power to be more in their sweet spot for the amount of input. So we're at about 246 amps, and we can look here at a few things. Let's look at the charging. It's actually showing 1.12 amps on that side, and then if we go on this side, it's about the same, of course. That's what you'd expect. So remember that setting before we turn anything on. Now, what's going to happen is these are going to put more power back into the system as we turn them on. And then it will speed it up faster, which will actually draw a little bit more amps here momentarily. So let's start by turning these little ones on. So you can see again the oscilloscope. So you can see it rise with each one that I turn on. I've got two 10 amp bulbs here. Uh-oh. Now watch what happens. Oh, I know what it is. It says bulb. So you can see the scope. Now I gotta turn it up a little bit to get back to where we were. So you can see a lot of the energy was going into this bulb instead, which is very hot right now because it was burning at a high brightness. After being off for a little bit, it's still at 120 degrees. So you gotta be careful with all that. Anyway, you can see the scope shot. See what happens. This gives you a little bit of an idea of what's going on. And of course, the charging rate right now has slowed down in these charging batteries because I don't have it all tuned the way I want it. I just wanted to show a few things here. But yeah. And might be able to power another load. I'm not going to try it on that box because I blew it out. So again, these boxes aren't tuned for this motor as I made them for another motor. But I just wanted to show this basically. So let's see if we can run this too. I'm not sure if I can connect it here. Turn it off for a minute. anything else I should say? So like I said, when we tune this just right, we can reduce the discharge rate or keep it charged or at zero, where it either charges or discharges, depending on how we tune it. Alright, one more thing here. I want to show, I forgot to show the ammeter. So it's at 37 amps. Now it's at 127 amps. This is the charging. I have it through the positive side, and I have the little box through the negative side. I forgot to mention that when I changed those LEDs. So now let's look at the other side. It's 136. 125, 126, 136. So let's turn it on again. It's 35 amps, or 0.35, 350 milliamps. 0.47 on the negative side. Let's see what it is on the back. 0.32 between the two batteries. So here we have this, you can see what we're dealing with. Now I put one of those on, 0.28, 0.30, 0.4. Let's turn another one on. 0.25, it's going down. So you notice the amps are going down. 0.36. 0.19 now. So this is the kind of stuff I wanted to show you guys. 0.31. So 2.72 on that. There's another 10 amp bulb. 10 watt bulb, I should say. 0.15. 0.27. This cannot run for that. Oh, these bulbs cannot run this with that low current. Now, this is not really current that's going through the line. That's what's confusing. This will read any kind of pulse. So again, we're still at 0.15. And we're at 0.25 here. Let's turn on the last one. So depending on the type of bulb that I'm using here, still 0.25, 0.1, so 100 milliamps. So maybe if I find another bulb here, let's change one of these bulbs out. Lower power bulb with a higher power bulb. This is what I'm talking about, matching, balancing the system, matching the loads, so forth. Alright, so let's now look again. We're at 0.12, 0.25, These switches each represents a box in itself. So we're at 0.22. Hold on. 0.07. And we can look at it right here. See, 0.0708 around. Again, that's the charging bus bar there. On this side, 2.67. It's a lot of light, people. .09, it's going down a little bit. I gotta turn it up, but I just wanted to keep it the same pretty much. So anyway, you can see this phenomena. That's all I wanted to show you today. That's the main thing, besides just doing a basic demonstration. So as we go down, the amperage changes. Of course, on the DC side, it's 0. And on the AC side, 1.9 volts on that one, 2.3 volts on that one, 2 volts on that one, 7 volts on this one. Oh no, wait, 5 volts. Hold on. 3 volts, sorry. This is the same one right here. About 3 volts. 2.4 volts. So we've got some voltage on the AC side there. And then on the AC side of this one, volts again. And then on the DC side, volts on that one now. So again, this is not the 0-point demonstration that we did more before, because we're not running the motor the way we normally run it. But you can see it's more of a 0 amperage demonstration. So we'll go again. See, we're up at 3 amps. .26 now, so we've shifted a bit. So 0.14 now, because this is sped up a little bit. I can go down a little bit. Now we've come down a little bit. See, the system adjusted a little bit because of the batteries and that. That battery is still discharging, unlike we normally do it. So again, 0.17. You know, the battery is still charging a little bit, and then all these loads are running for next to nothing. If we were to run we have on the AC side 0.05 amps per bulb, or with this bulb. On the DC side, oh no, that was the AC side. So this one's showing 0.5 amps. Of course, I'm not going to try and, you don't know what's in the box, so, but I'm just showing you the relative amperage between these systems, or between these lines. So I'm going to bring this around right now. So you can get a close-up here. First of all, the generator coils, you can see just coming around here, just a mess of wires. It's coming to this bulb. And then we can see the circuit. Just a regular circuit, nothing special. Just one diode in there, like we normally have. And then you can see these are all connected up. It's hard to tell with the camera that it changes the brightness on you, depending on the other lights that are on. So you can see here, this is the 2 batteries, and then the other 2 batteries. You can see there's nothing underneath here. This is just sitting on the top of the batteries there. And then of course the coils here, and that's that timing that I said right there. There's nothing else over here going on. So you can see you have a big heat sink right here, and that's so that's about it, I think. Thanks for watching once again.